Welcome, my friends and enemies. Glad you are here. I'm going to pull the mic over so you can hear me. Welcome, my friends and enemies. Glad you are here. I am a professional, and as a professional, I make lots of mistakes because I'm a professional. That's what. Well, hold on. Wait a minute. Anyway, how you guys doing? We have my light off because I'm a professional, so I'm going to fix that. Now you can look at my face because that's all what you wanted to do to begin with. Regardless of that, how you guys doing? How are you guys enjoying Witcher Season 4? Or is it 5? What season are we on? I think it's 4. Pretty sure it's 4. Because I'm pretty sure Cavill only did 3. So I think we're on 4. Yeah, so we're probably on 4. I don't know. It doesn't matter. It's not important because it's terrible either way. So how are you enjoying it? Leave a comment below how bad that is. Everyone's really fond of Lauren S. Lauren S. Hisrich. Why do you have to have the S in there? Why can't you say Lauren Hisrich? Goodness. Anyway, everyone's really fond of her because she's kind of a deuce nozzle. Not gonna lie. So, when it comes down to her opinion, I typically care very, very little for it. But she did open her mouth, which means it's probably trash. But I figured, why don't we go take a gander at what she has to say? Because, worst comes to worst. I already have low expectations. You can't go any lower, right? Let's try. No one is taking the books away. No one is taking the video games away. The Witcher showrunner responds to backlash to Netflix show. Coming from IGN because, reliable, but it is what it is. Everyone can have their version of The Witcher, and this is this version. Well, I obviously can't have my version of The Witcher because my version of The Witcher doesn't exist. Strictly in the TV show sense of the word. So, how exactly do they expect me to believe that they are going to give me what I'm wanting? Or not them give me what they want, but that I can have what I want as a show. You can have what you want as a show, except when you can't and when you don't. It's a very strange place to be, and I don't fully understand the purpose of claiming such a thing, because quite frankly, it's a blatant lie, and this is very much the everything is relative kind of a mentality, oh, well, this is The Witcher to me, and that's The Witcher to you, but they're both The Witcher. And it's well, actually, no. Having a Witcher game that's about Ciri, but she's not The Witcher. So is it a Witcher game, or is it a Ciri game? And it's fine if it's a Ciri game, because we are expecting Ciri in a Ciri game. But if what people want is a Witcher game, then they're going to want The Witcher, Geralt, to be in the game. So what you expect you're going to get versus what you actually get. It's like getting a Temu Witcher. And I'm not saying that to go after Liam Hemsworth or anything. It's more of just the story and how it was implemented is not, it's not The Witcher, to put it bluntly. The Witcher Season 4 is a bonus. Okay, it's 4th, whatever. And as fans know, the series has strayed away somewhat from the books upon which it is based. As fans know, yes. I'm surprised IGN said that. Which has sparked backlash among some fans. Well, we've had problems ever since you didn't add the best waifu. And why would you not have Triss? But Triss was in it, you might say. Actually, she wasn't. They threw somebody in there. Same thing with Fringilla. Fringilla wasn't in it. They added somebody else and called her Fringilla. It's not how that works. Showrunner Lauren Schmidt Histrich. There's the S. Why do we need to add Schmidt? Who cares about Schmidt? However, has defended an approach taken for the Netflix show, which replaced Henry Cavill with Liam Hemsworth following the former Superman actor's exit in season 3. Yeah, because it was totally his idea. Because he wanted them to do an actual story, and we're going to keep going for 7 seasons or something. And they're we're going to just do something else entirely. In an interview with Dexerto, Hisrich, and I'm not going to call her Schmidt, Hisrich insisted the Netflix show exists in addition to the book. I know how she's trying to say this, but what she's actually saying is really stupid. She's trying to say that you still have the books, and you still have the games, and then this is the show. Except it's not in addition to the books, it's despite the books. So the books are there, and we ignored them and did something else entirely and made it look like a really bad AI written form of the actual books. In addition to the books and CD Projekt Red, but much loved video games which still exist for fans to enjoy. Wow, I am struggling today. I'm not gonna watch that. You have book fans, you have video game fans, and you have fans that knew nothing about this world until the show existed. So they're not fans of The Witcher. They're fans of a show that plagiarizes The Witcher. Good to know, she said. And the truth is, we can't choose one audience. You literally can. See, here's the thing. And I don't know why this is a constant confusion for people. So, put it into perspective. You have established fandom. You have brand new people. So established fandom comes in and says, hey, we support this because we want everyone to like this stuff. And they're like, here's the source material. Here's what we like. And then you got the new people coming in. They know nothing. So in the real world, how Hollywood typically does it is they say fandom and new people, they reject the fandom for the new people who don't know anything about it, and then they push away the fandom. How it should operate is you go after the fandom, and by default, when the new people who know nothing about it comes in, they will like it because they don't know anything else. What they made for The Witcher versus what they should have made with The Witcher, the new people are not aware. I'm not going to say they're stupid because they don't know, but they're not aware of the actual source material. They're not aware of the content. All they know is Henry Cavill's in it and it's a fantasy. That's it. So if you follow the source material, you'd win the fans and the new people. But when your goal is more or less ideological and diversity pushed, you're not going to get a true story that the fans are going to like and that the new people will understand, because if you take the fans who are still existing, the fandom still exists, and when the new fans come into a non-accurate story, come in and they ask the fans, oh, so what about this? And the fan goes, that's not a thing. And they, what do you mean? Hi, sister. You want to come say hi? Sorry. Kitty is making a pop in. Say hi. And that's my kitty cat deciding to interrupt my recording as usual. So, you have the new person coming to the Iron Guard fandom and saying, hey, why isn't this in this? And they're like, well, because this is what happens, this is what happens, this is what happens. And then they're like, oh, well, you know, the humans hate the elves and the dwarves and stuff, and they're very racist. And they're like, oh, you can't have racist people. Like, well, you can. It's called, you know, button heads. Like it's a story with adversaries. You have people who hate other people because of X, Y, and Z reasons. In this case, because there are different species. Okay, so what's wrong with that? Having it doesn't mean it's good, but it does say that when you see an elf and they come across a human, they're very cautious because they're like, oh, humans are typically racist towards us, so I'm going to change the demeanor in which my characteristics are going to align. And then when Witcher, Geralt, comes up to them, they behave differently because he's not human. And he is treated poorly from the other perspective, from the human perspective. Or the elves see the humans treat him poorly most of the time. I mean, there are some people who are like, it is what it is, But most people are terrified of the Witchers because the Witchers are not human anymore. And they have kind of freaky demeanors. They kind of lose their emotions. There's certain aspects that just make them less human and more Witcher. But the elves will deal with the Witcher because they're not human, and the humans don't like the Witcher because he's not human. So then the elves see an ally in the Witcher, and the dwarves see an ally in the Witcher. And then basically Geralt can become this in between multiple species. Races, I guess would be a better term. But you don't get that if you don't have the racism. Well, then you can't explain why the dwarves and elves aren't. Oh, wait, we're just going to take them and we're going to squish them all into the same area, and then it's all good. Okay, well, that doesn't make sense either, because now you've rewritten the entire story. Now there is no conflict. Well, we're having the Empire of Nilfgaard show up. Why? Well, they want to conquer stuff. Well, that's conflict. That's bad. You can't have conquering because, bad guys. Like, well, they are the bad guys. I'm like, so what about those racists? Were they not bad guys? Like, you can't have them all of a sudden? There's no conflict. There's no story. There's no growth. There's no nothing. It's just literally them making up flippant things that are not consistent in any shape or form. What's the point? So, ultimately, we get down to, is it the same story? No, it's not the same story. Does it have some characters? This is about the same story as the Wheel of Time was with the Wheel of Time books. No, absolutely not. There were some aspects that looked like, oh, that could look like it, but it was never completely it. They kept taking turns when they zigged when they should have zagged, put it that way. And then you have, we can't choose one audience. You can. You choose the fans. Everybody else will show up. Because if you don't choose the fans, you only have the new people who are not locked and loaded into your product, your creation. Nobody cares about your creation because they're not married to it. They're not fans. They're tourists. They show up. They're like, oh, that's interesting. Or, oh, man, that was terrible. And then they leave. People who think it's interesting don't just automatically become fans because all it takes is one minor inconvenience for them and they're gone. So you don't have people continually to watch. But if you have the fandom, you always have somebody to watch, which is why when you make a video game based after a book or a movie or something, or based off of prior material, you make the game as similar to that as possible so you get the most cohesive, rational story you could possibly have. And the fans of that source material will come and play that as much as they can. And then the new people are like, oh, what's this? This seems interesting. And maybe you'll get some fans out of it. But odds are they're going to just be there. They'll buy it. They'll play it for a little bit. And then they'll just put it back on the shelf and move on to the next thing because that's what a tourist does. They're not there for the long haul. They're there for the short term. So we already know the counts are dive bombing. So less people are watching The Witcher after Cavill left. And honestly, people were leaving before Cavill left, not because they didn't like Cavill, but because the story was trash. Sorry, that's just the way it is. They could have done it like a procedural of some sort, not necessarily with Cavill, because that would be expensive. But they could have done a procedural in which every episode he's taking on a new monster and a new location, and he's making allies and whatnot, and then have the end of the seasons be a culmination of something. And then have multiple seasons of that. That would have been the smart way to do it. Be basically like a supernatural series. Much shorter, though. But instead, they're like, we're going to make it pretty lame. And we're going to follow the Ciri storyline. Now, don't get me wrong. I love Ciri. I don't love Yennefer. I do love Triss. The story around Ciri is actually pretty annoying and kind of stupid. Because Geralt stops doing monster hunting and basically does, I'm going to chase Ciri around the continent over and 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 over. And I'll have a whole bunch of other stuff happen in between. And it's just going to draw it out for a long, long time, which is why I don't really care about the books beyond the first two. The first two are the short stories, and they're the good ones. They're absolutely fantastic because they're short stories and individual things about towns, villages, characters having some form of either a protagonist, antagonist, or, somebody's has a relation to the monster in some shape or form. There's actual, good storytelling. But as soon as like series joining into this, it kind of falls off really hard. And I'd never really liked Yennefer to begin with, just because of her personality and everything. But be as it may, you could have kept it and made the fandom your audience. All you have to do is make the fandom your audience. So the only thing this tells me is that you never wanted the fandom. You wanted to change the fandom. You wanted to take the show and say, oh, look at all these, lesbians or race swaps or whatever. And I'm not saying that there aren't lesbians, because there are in the stories, but you're changing the focus on the adventure to these superficial things on the side pieces and making that the big deal. So even if all that content is in the books, they're side notes, they're citations, they're not even the main story, but you're making them the main story because that's more important to you as the showrunner than anything else. We don't have to remember, or we have to remember what we were doing, which is a television show. And again, and every single day it feels like I come across somebody, especially in the Wheel of Time groups, where they mention, oh, an adaptation. This is how they do an adaptation. I'm like, that's not what adaptation means. Adaptation is taking from one medium to another medium. That's it. An adaptation is not changing the entire story. It is not making whatever changes and little fits and bits and bobs that you want to put into it. It's literally just, I'm taking it from piece of paper to a visual medium, like a video game, a movie, a TV show, a photo, whatever it might be. You're doing this literally piece by piece. So if that's the case, then how exactly are you conflating adaptation with I can do whatever I want? That's not how that works. But they do that every single day. It is different than any other genre and any other form that you could tell the story. What? It's a fantasy genre. That's not different than any other genre. And we have to make the choices for that. Well, yeah, but you just did bad choices. That's the problem. We have 8 hours every season to tell these stories, and we're never going to be able to tell everything from the books. Then stick to the short stories, because that's the important ones. You could also greatly compound the actual series story if you wanted to, by a lot. If you're like, oh, we're going to be limited on seasons. Okay, but if you're, I believe they were originally going to do 7 seasons. 7 seasons times 8 is 56 hours. You had 56 hours. And you could have done the first 2 books in the first 2 seasons, leaving you 5 seasons to tell series story. And you could probably do it accurately. At least moderately accurate. You could like stick to the skeleton and add a little bit of the actual like organs necessary for that story to survive, or the spirit of that story to survive, and you would have been fine. But you were interested in the flash and the flare, in the renown of making something better than the books, which is never going to happen. For one, the books are trash in that regard, except for the first 2. But I'm not going to keep repeating that. Or am I? I also think that there have to be changes that you make for adaptation just to make the story keep going forward. Did you think the books just stopped midway because we don't have anything to keep the story going forward? No, you have something to make the story go forward. You just have to keep going forward. Season 1's the perfect example. Obviously, we leaned into the 2 books of short stories. Well, not really. I mean, you kind of barely touched on them. And ironically, those are the best parts of the season. But you can't tell unrelated adventures in a season of television. Yes, you can. Have you never? Oh my gosh. What do you think a procedural is? It's literally characters who do different things literally. Law and Order. You have the same characters, but every episode, unless they do like a mini, like 3-part, like mini piece of the same story, they're literally all different instances. They do this for Bones. You do this for Criminal Minds. You do this for like every TV show back in the 90s and the early 2000s. This was a thing. It's always been a thing. But if you want to tell the same story, you do the same thing because it's a short story. It's already giving you the material. You make an episode or two, boom. Guess what? Congratulations. You have successfully done a procedural based on actual short stories, and you've done what you're supposed to do that people are going to like. Wow, shocking. And this is Lauren Histrich. This is Siri. This is Liam. Yennefer. A fake version of Dandelion. And Lawrence Fishburne. I like him. I kind of like her acting. I just think she was given terrible stuff to work with. The rest I don't care about. I really don't care about her. You have to start to weave them together. You have to understand how these adventures lead our characters to be where they are meant to be. You are the one who makes them be where they need to be, or mean to be, or meant to be, whatever the case might be. You're the one who puts them there. So if they were meant to be somewhere through the books, you could have put them there. If you decide they can't be there because of X, Y, and Z, guess what? Then they're not going to be there. That's how that works. And so we had to start crafting. At that point, it was the connective tissue. What the frick are you on about? We also have the privilege of knowing when we're ending. Netflix picked up season 4 and 5 at the same time, so we also had to write ourselves to that particular ending. So again, you make choices. Except you had more, but Netflix decided to not continue. Why would they not continue a successful series? Maybe because it's not successful. There's an idea. They're trying to save face. Maybe they have contracts. Whatever the case may be. One of the things that I've talked a lot to the author about, I doubt that, or at least if you did, you ignored him, and a lot of fans that the books still exist. No duh. No one's taking the books away. You're taking away the adaptation medium for the books? Yes, you are. No one is taking the video games away. The video games are always going to be superior to whatever slop you make. That video game developers had better storytelling than you did. That's embarrassing. Because your job is literally storytelling. I mean, theirs is too to some extent, but like you're supposed to have endless pockets. They don't. I think everyone can have their version of The Witcher, and this is this version. I cannot have my version of The Witcher, just like I cannot have my version of Wheel of Time, my versions of Rings of Power, etc., because they decided to say, screw the source material, screw all this content. Hi, Sissy. Screw all of this and say, we're doing our own thing because we were making a name for ourselves. And they made a name for themselves, just not a very good one. It also sounds like Histrich will step back from Witcher after Season 5 is done and dusted. I can't imagine why. Also, speaking to Dexerto, she insisted the show would not move past the books, so Season 5 really is it. Well, I mean, you could have done them in 7 and had more content, but you fudged that up. By the time we wrap Season 5 fully, it will have been 9 years of my life. Yeah, 9 years that you have lost so much respect from so many people. Congratulations. I think there are so many more stories to be told in the Witcher universe, truly. Not if they're accurate. But I also think that you have to step back and accept gracefully what is the end of the story that we've been telling. Well, I don't know. You made up whatever you wanted to, so you could technically go for 5 million seasons because you're just doing whatever you want, regardless of source material. Are there more stories? Maybe. But this one has to end at this point. So I think it's a nice time for all of us to step back a little bit. Basically, you're saying, I'm not being fired because we're shutting everything down because it's all terrible. I'm totally just, leaving of my own accord. Totally. IGN gave season 4 a 7 out of 10 because that's all IGN can give anything. There's 7 out of 10s for everything. We said even with the Cavill Hemsworth shake-up, The Witcher sticks to its guns or swords and delivers a decent season of magic and mayhem. Well, if it's just a random fantasy series, maybe. But even then, some of their props are terrible. Their outfits were terrible. Dialogue was terrible because you're putting like 2025 dialogue in a, pre-10,000 year ago type of version of speech. It's weird. And then they have the whole, are you willing to give Liam Hemsworth a choice or a chance? And yeah, that's happening. So, I mean, You can't have nice things. You can't have proper um, adaptations. You can't have really anything that's going to solidify the nature of a source material or whatever it was originally. I mean, source material is what it is, but we got the Lord of the Rings trilogy, and that was lightning in a bottle. And one could really argue that it wasn't completely accurate to the story, but it was still a cinematic masterpiece. It was still phenomenal. And it was a lot closer than pretty much any other adaptation I could think of, except maybe the first couple seasons of Game of Thrones. They were accurate to the book, doesn't mean they were necessarily good stories, but they were accurate to the books. But nothing's going to beat Lord of the Rings' renown, mostly because season 8 of Game of Thrones ruined the entire series. I do think House of the Dragon, as I've not watched it, but from the reviews I've heard, it's pretty accurate to the books. But they're not completed, I think, either. Maybe those ones are. But there's like so many non-completed stuff because George R. R. Martin doesn't complete anything. He starts a whole bunch of things and never completes them. But I don't know what we're gonna expect. I don't know what to expect, but I do know it's a big let me down, and I'm not happy about it. So there's that. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Is it bleh. Are you enjoying The Witcher? Are you even watching The Witcher? Who's your favorite characters? Are they accurate to the books? Do you know? Are you not a fan of the Witcher universe in general, and you're just kind of like a tourist walking in, which is nothing necessarily wrong against that, but you're showing up, you enjoy it, and then you're like, I'm just going to leave when it's done. I'm not going to go back to it. What is your stance? Sissy, you are being very interruptive. She's doing this a lot lately. But let me know in the comments about what exactly you think. Is there any type of solution you think that they could have done to save everything? Could they have just, which in my opinion, done whatever Henry Cavill said because he's an actual fan and is familiar with everything? Could they have hired better writers? Could they have not mocked the source material? Well, what do you think would have improved this? Because as it stands, it's not improvable. But what could they have done? Is there a Witcher series in the future in which they could, pun intended, start from scratch and do it as the source material adaptation it should have been, and been much better? What do you think? Leave a comment, like the video, share the video, all that fun stuff. Check the description for other content creators or businesses that support our corner of the YouTubes. I'm not sponsored. But let me know what you guys think, and we'll see you guys in the next one. So thanks, everybody. Remember, walk in the light, my friends.